Salutations, respected viewers. It's George from Ireland. So I'm going to do one of these videos of the Buckingham Palace area. You're not seeing my ugly mug because I need to be able to zoom and things like that. Okay, so this is part of the ceremonial carriage ride down to Buckingham Palace, which is never ever used. And you look up the top end of it, you can see this, it doesn't quite line up with the stately home. And there's a special gate. The stately home is off that way, so I can't show you it from this angle. You get the idea. You see the trees all planted in an avenue. Okay, so that's Green Park. Not to be confused with St James's Park. So Green Park and St James's Park are two tube stations, as underground railway stations on opposite sides of Buckingham Palace. And then, confusingly, St James's Palace is through there. You can't quite see it from this angle. Whereas St James's tube station's over there, the far side of St James's Park. Okay, so we're going to have a look at some of these ceremonial gates to this area around Buckingham Palace. These gates I never ever see opened, but and you'll see that all the detail here is not random. So there we're seeing Canada. I hope you can make that out. Might have to turn up the brightness of it. It's a very bright day. How do I turn up the brightness? Can you read Canada? Is that any clearer to you? Maybe not. Maybe less clear. Okay, so then look at the gates here. So you see a lion up the top and some of the symbols, some of the emblems of Canada, those leaves. And then there's this little cherub up the top holding the crown aloft, and fleur de lis, the symbols of France. And there's the cross, because until the Treaty of Amiens, 1801, George III or his ancestors claimed the title King of France as well. This gets very confusing, go back to the Middle Ages when the English and French royal dynasties were intermarried, and the King of France died, they didn't have a son, and who was to inherit? Was it his distant relatives or not? You know, the Valois family or not? The Salic laws, did it apply or not? Only you could only inherit the male line or not? I don't know the wrong and the right of it. Okay, so there are these cherubs. There was no ethical principle to it. It was really just power politics and land grabbing back then. And okay, so look here. If we can zoom in, you see the ships up there and the lions and all these leaves that the cherub is emerging out of, holding the crown aloft, and the same again over the other side. And look at the faces below the ships, these golden faces. So perhaps turn up the brightness, maybe that's a bit clearer to you. And the same again. They don't make them like this anymore. Look at the handiwork went into this on this wrought iron gate, so gilded. And then you'll even see, well, you see where it's locked here. I've never ever seen it open. And E, is it R7, as in Eduardus Rex Septimus, King Edward VII. So he reigned 1901 to 1910, died May 1910, obviously inherited January 1901 when his mother, Queen Victoria, died. So you're getting the idea, some maple leaves up here above the smiling faces. Fleur de lis, partly for Quebec, the Francophone province. And look at this buffalo here, or bison if you prefer to call it that. So symbol of Canada, or British North America, as they called it a long time ago, as in to distinguish it from the United States. And then over here, there's a Canadian War Memorial. Where is it? There's a curious shape of water flowing over it. I shan't film it too closely. But the trouble is, people don't conduct themselves with great decorum there. They're often walking on it. Okay, maybe you see those children in the distance. That thing they were walking on, that's a Canadian War Memorial. I've known Canadians to come over and take exception to people walking on it. Now look, it mentions Newfoundland on this one. So all the Newfies, you know, bow here with a wreath around it, because of course Newfoundland was a separate dominion until 1949, and it ended to become part of Canada. And this is Constitution Hill, this drive here. It's not much of a hill, it's only a slight slope, where Charles I used to take a constitutional, and there's a stroll, a postprandial, as an after luncheon every day. And I believe that is where Sir Robert Peel, the former Prime Minister, fell off his horse and died. Didn't die immediately, was thrown onto the pommel and sustained internal injuries, killed him some days later. Look at this, leeks, as in a symbol of Wales, and these other plants, the scepters going through there, and VR, Victoria Regina, as in Queen Victoria. And up top you see the fish intertwined around the lamppost and on. Same again. Okay, so this is the edge of Buckingham Palace. And Fathers for Justice, this group for fathers' rights, have their children taken away, get no access to their children. Sometimes the mother doesn't let them have access despite a court order saying that, or a divorce agreement. So he takes her to court, spends thousands of pounds, another court order which she flouts, Months later, another court case, another court order. She gets away with it again, breaking the court orders willy-nilly, and fathers don't get to see their children for several years despite striving to be good fathers. Anyway, about 2005 was the height of this, and they used to dress up as Batman and Robin or Superman or whatever, and one of them climbed over here. You see where the wall is very low, dead ahead. There wasn't the high black fence then. Went all the way along here and was able to climb up, and went up on that corner there and around this edge here. Okay, where the balustrade is. I'm going to have to show you through the other side. And along up there. See the lion and the unicorn along there? There's another royal coat of arms up there. On y Dieu est mon droit, God on my right in French. I think the zoom doesn't go any closer. No, that's making it brighter at least. But am I zooming in more? Yeah, it doesn't, you can't really see it. And across here, across here, across here, across all the way past these windows. I don't know how they're hanging on. Obviously the police were here looking at him, had their guns trained on him, and right onto the front, near one of those balconies there, was there for hours, and a crowd was gathered. It was live on television news, but nothing was done about it. And anyway, after a few hours, he finally surrendered, and he came down. He agreed to come down. The police had one of those things, I don't know what you call them, where a man was put up high to repair a lamppost. And he came down and was arrested and put up any resistance. He was there for several hours. People say they didn't know how he went so many hours without needing to take a leak. And people say, well, in a way, wasn't this good because no harm done, nobody got hurt, he didn't get hurt, and that was it. But the chief of Metropolitan Police, Chief Constable, as in the London Police, said, well, if it had been assessed that he was carrying a gun, he would have been shot dead. But we quickly figured out that he wasn't. But how did you know that? Were you taking a bit of a risk? Because next time somebody wants to assassinate the Queen, they will just dress up as Batman or Superman or somebody like that, a superhero, and will think, oh, it's all a lark, it's just a high-profile protest, a prank. And then he won't take it seriously and won't use force, and then it'll be bang, goodbye, Your Majesty. Okay. So the leeks, they were a symbol of Wales. I showed you the leeks earlier because the Welsh soldiers, the Battle of Crecy, fighting in the leek garden, so wearing leeks in their hat for St. David's Day, 1st of March, on the Welsh Guards. Look up here, a rose in the middle of England. It's Tudor roses, particularly red, white, concentric circles. For when the Tudor dynasty was founded, the intermarriage of the House of York and the House of Lancaster, 1485, bringing in towards the roses. To the left, you see the Shamrock of Ireland. To the right, the Thistle of Scotland, because of the Battle of Largs, when the enemy were creeping up on the Scots in the middle of the night, and barefooted those days. It was like the 11th century. And one of them, I think it was a Norwegian actually, tread on a thistle and let out a shriek in pain, and that alerted the Scots to the enemy stealthily approaching them, and the Scots were roused from their slumbers and they fended off the attack. Of course, had it been a hardy North Briton, he would have held his wheesht and not called out in pain because they're so manly, and that's that. So it was thistle because they're tough. The English like to scorn them, saying it's a weed. Okay, so you see more symbols here, the laurel wreath, the leek, the scepters, and so on. And then up high, VR, Victoria Regina, Queen Victoria. And then the royal coat of arms at the top, the Harp of Ireland. You can't really make it out, the three lions, Passol, and so forth. So these motifs are repeated again and again. These things are not random, they all have a signification. And then, okay, so look at all the symbols there. The artist's palette, the brush, the lyre, as in we're playing music, like lyrics, words written to be sung, to be played to the lyre. The page for writing on, various other instruments. Is it a cannon or a trombone? I can't remember. And up here, look at these angels, winged as they are, holding scepters, either one of them. The crown in the middle, laurel wreaths of victory, and fish atop with mouths agape. Yeah, and there you have the unicorn. Thought to actually really be based on an oryx. Okay, we're going to cross over. Now, who gets to go in the golf cart? Thanks a lot. So there must be some sort of dignitary, some disabled person, some Arab dignitary. And then you can see here the lion and the unicorn, and the crest is a bit above the coat of arms, not the actual coat of arms, as the golden lion above, and all the same symbols you got used to. St. George slaying the dragon down at the bottom. So many touristicos hanging around here. And look over there, the Victoria Memorial, and the goddess, a victory, or Nike if you want to call her that, there embossed in gold. Obviously went up only after the death of Queen Victoria. Why is the road red? It's a royal road, okay, but it's open to the public. So no protests are allowed here. So when there's a state visit, they will go to They go to Horse Guards Parade, which is down that way, about a mile, and they get into their horse-drawn carriages and ride up here and back again. But the police can legitimately close down a protest, grab your banners, arrest you, because protests are not allowed in royal parks. Protests are allowed in other places, but not royal parks, since the royal family is meant to be above politics. Okay, so look, there is the lion's face, and are these grapes below? A bunch of grapes. Look at the fleur de lis motif on top of the fence, and then the little orb, this little globe thing, representing the world and the cross above it every so often. Okay, so you're getting the idea. And then looking in here, look above the archway, they've got a royal coat of arms on either side of the archway. And then on the gate they've got VR, Victoria Regina, as in Queen Victoria. So these soldiers on duty now, and I can't try to work out the buttons on him, because you can tell which regiment of foot guards he is from how the buttons are spaced. Have I got to maximum zoom? Yeah, now I've zoomed all the way in. If it's 11111, then it's obviously Coldstream Guards, the first one formed. If it's 2 buttons, then 2 buttons, then another 2 buttons, it's Grenadier Guards. If it's 3 buttons and 3, then 3, then it's Scots Guards, and so on. The Scots Guards have a thistle effect in their hat. He's got something or other in his hat. But there's a blue one for the Irish Guards, blue plume on the left. It's actually St Patrick's blue, not St Patrick's green. Green's really only been associated with Ireland mainly since about 1800, when Thomas More wrote his poem about the Emerald Isle and coined the expression. So Irish government things, we have St Patrick's blue, not green. Although green is the field of Leinster, as in the flag of Leinster, Ireland's eastern province. It's got green. So every couple of minutes he's marching up and down so it doesn't faint. And you can see above the guard box the letters ER, Elizabetha Regina, as in Queen Elizabeth. And his comrade is there. By the way, these guns, they're not loaded, but the bayonets are real. There's no reason why they would be loaded. I mean, they're guarding, it's really just ceremonials. The police have the real guns there. They obviously have submachine gun, and they have a handgun as well. So you get the idea. So loads of foreign students have their English Academica Britannica. It's an Italian company. And, okay, so there you see again, I'm not going to go through it all. You've seen them, and up here, 1911 when it was built. And you see the rose, the thistle, and the angels, the shamrock, the crown, and on again. And then over this side, GR5, King George V. So 1910, he inherited the crown from his father, Richard VII, and he died in 1936. And the same angels and symbols like that, or cherubs they are rather. So on and on. Anyway, so all these gates around the edges have various names of various parts of the erstwhile British Empire. So this front of Buckingham Palace is only built about 1910. Behind it is a yellow sandstone. Sometimes if you see in back there, behind the car, I'm not sure if you can make out the yellow sandstone behind, it was a sort of almost a C-shape Buckingham Palace at the time, until this Portland grey stone was finished off. So Buckingham Palace, it was called Buckingham House. It was only purchased by the royal family in 1760. Kensington Palace was their main residence in London, even though St James's Palace to this day is their official residence, which is only half a mile from here. That, of course, why ambassadors are always accredited to the court of St James. Okay, Edwardus Rex Septimus, and you see all these things. I'm showing you a bit more detail, close up the cornucopia, horn of plenty of their sun rays, things like that. So it's obviously symmetrical. You can see the same thing over there. It's not actually hugely wide or high, Buckingham Palace, but bear in mind it was a much more low-rise city, 1910, when it was built. So it was called Buckingham House before 1760, not Buckingham Palace. It was owned by the Duke of Buckingham. This was not considered Buckinghamshire. Buckinghamshire is a county outside London to the northwest. Okay, so same again. It's getting almost tedious. And same again. Anyway, and prior to that was Ebury House. So for centuries there'd been a house on that site, but Ebury House was levelled before they constructed Buckingham House. And then, as I say, Buckingham Palace has been very considerably extended. What you see now is about double the floor space of the original 18th century building. So they didn't demolish Buckingham House, they simply added to it to turn it into Buckingham Palace. So there are gates down there, which they never see locked, but that's the edge of the Royal Park. That's why it's no longer red further down there. Okay, so Her Majesty the Queen is not in residence now, it's July. So July, August and the first half of September she is in Scotland. She goes to Holyrood House, her palace in Edinburgh, that's her official residence in Scotland. And then she's also in Balmoral in August. Balmoral's in Aberdeenshire, a private estate purchased in 1861, as in they don't have any official visitors there. And they can relax away from the glare of the media. You can see that the Union flag is flying, the British flag, because the Queen is not there. When the Queen is there, they'll fly the Royal Standard, the Royal Coat of Arms, with the blue, so the Golden Harp of Ireland on a blue field. That's because of Northern Ireland. Obviously, most of Ireland, we're not part of the UK. And they will have other things. They'll have, obviously, the 3 gold lions on a red field for England, lions passant, and the lion rampant, which is red on a yellow field for Scotland. They don't have anything for Wales as such. But the monarch each monarch has a slightly different coat of arms, and a slightly different royal standard as in flag. Don't call it the Union Jack, the British flag, unless it's flown from unless it's the naval jack. It's flown from the jack deck of a ship. There's a common misconception, you should always call it a Union Jack. Okay, so if you ever want to come to the change of the guard, it's 11:30 every morning in the summer, alternate mornings in the winter, unless it's very inclement weather. Okay, so these ones say Australia, and look at this toddler with a joey beside him, a little kangaroo. And then you see up here one of the coats of arms of one of the states of Australia, yeah, with the layout of the stars, and a cherub holding the crown aloft.
Last year, somebody 70 years old.
So if you ever come to the change of the guard, this will be one of the best places to stand, because the soldiers come out of Wellington Barracks, which is dead ahead, as in named after the Duke of Wellington, and they march on towards to Buckingham Palace. So it begins at 11:30 and goes on for at least half an hour. So they're foot guards in their red tunics or scarlet tunics, black bearskin hats, and yes, they really are made from bearskins. They have experimented with doing with synthetic materials and found to be unsatisfactory. Now, I know the Labour politicians said that they ought to replace them because there's no military rationale in them wearing actual bearskins, but these things, they're incredibly costly. Obviously, you don't have to pay for them as a soldier, but they will last for a century if done properly, if looked after well. And the army obviously do look after their kit. That's one of the things that really dinned into them. Obviously, ceremonial uniform doesn't really matter, but there's the idea that you have to really look after your clothing, your equipment, because that could be life and death at times. So still red for a royal road. That is Wellington Barracks I was telling you about. So they'll be coming this way. And they don't interact with the public. The police are there to control the public, get the public back. The army are only to do anything if there's actually a terrorist attack. And as I say, their guns are not loaded in that ceremony because they're not there to fight. And because if you have hundreds of soldiers marching around and their guns are loaded, just occasionally there's going to be a negligent discharge. And a gun going off in a crowded area, even if not aimed at somebody, that is not a good situation. Ricochet might hit somebody. So see, it says Australia up there again. And this cherub with behind him. So this is St James's Park here, with a duck pond. And this bird here, what is it? A phoenix, some sort of eagle? A swan here for Australia. I'm not sure what this lion. I don't find those in Australia. No big cats. That's why when these British immigrants to Australia introduced cats and dogs, it obviously had a cataclysmic effect on the biodiversity, and that's why there are so many, say, rats and rabbits and things like that have to put up rabbit-proof fences. Okay, Australia again, and a coat of arms held by this cherub, and on and on. So I could go around and around and show you more and more. There's these splendid flower beds. So if there's any royal event on, there'll be various media boxes, various media organizations, CNN, Fox News, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, American Broadcasting Corporation, Australian Broadcasting Corporation, France 24, and so on. They will all have media boxes here when they're filming on Buckingham Palace. Some announcements from Buckingham Palace are made by putting up a notice board near the gate announcing the birth of whoever it is or the death of whoever it is. Okay, so this is the Victoria Memorial. You can see these gigantic figures here. And you can see also that winged goddess. I wonder if she's going to be Athena Nike as well. And there's the widow of Windsor herself, Queen Victoria at the front. She was actually a very diminutive lady, but you probably wouldn't get that idea from looking at her there. So there are people who said that they ought to get rid of the Victoria Memorial. It's just kind of in the way. Open Buckingham Palace permanently, being allowed people to walk in and out of that piazza in the middle. It's obviously got a big courtyard to admit light to much of the palace. There are some royal apartments. So if you go in there as a tourist, and I've done it, you can go into the throne room. You can't see everything at the palace, obviously, and it's only open, as I say, July, August, and about the first half of September. Then the Queen comes back. So when she's in Holyrood House, they have some royal visitors, like it could be a princess of Spain or whoever, or a prince from Japan, but they don't have foreign political visitors. And the Prime Minister's invited up for a week in August, as is the Archbishop of Canterbury. That goes back to Queen Victoria. It's not about liking or disliking the Prime Minister personally, they just always do that. Okay, West Africa, obviously bunching several colonies together, just calling it West Africa. And there's that lion, that cherub. Obviously he's very Caucasian looking. The little boy, and there's a shield with no symbol on it. He's holding some leaves, I suppose. Or is it maize up high? Okay, and the same over on the other side, it says S Africa, so South Africa. And again, the artist's impression is not very effective. We want to represent the average infant from that part of the world. A decidedly European looking infant, there you are. So that's down to Admiralty Arch. You can probably just about make out the distance. Anyway, probably good to have a better look at the Victoria Memorial. So, we've gone most of the way around. I've not completed the full circle, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get to the Victoria Memorial. It's not very easy to cross over from this side. Perhaps I ought to cross over from the other side. So you can see these gigantic figures holding lions and holding something aloft, in this case, some branch over flaming torch. On the other side, an olive, as in a peace, that woman. And there are these ship's prows on the front of it. There is water pouring out there. Only if it's very cold, it's like to freeze. They turn off the water, and people throw coins in there for luck. I once got into it, and I tried. It's actually a lot deeper than it looks. And I was wet almost to my waist, and I dipped my hand into picking up a coin. I was delighted with my coin. What was it? It was a Mexican coin. So, well, how good that did me. Anyway, you can see some Neptune figures, whoever it is. Figures from classical mythology. So it's obviously built after 1901, when there's a craze for everything from ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Right, I think I might film that on a separate occasion. So that's enough from Buckingham Palace. I've been giving a brief panorama and a brief commentary on some of the symbolism of the things that you'll see around here, the monumental sculptures. That's enough from Buckingham Palace for the moment.